Hi, my name is Nemtallah Daher. I'm a senior consultant with Advizex. I've been doing NSX work for the past 5.5, 6 years. And recently, one popular question I've been getting is, should I do V? Should I do T? What are the differences between the two? So I thought we'd kind of cover this today. I took the liberty of putting down some similarities here just to save some time writing. So we'll cover the similarities and then we'll cover the differences and all the new features that you're going to get with T that are not available in V. So to start, similarities, they both, V and T both do virtual networking. They do switching, routing, security, distributed firewall, which is our microsegmentation, gateway firewall through the appliance, automation. They both have a full RESTful API, services such as edge routing, VPN, layer 2 and layer 3, load balancing, NATing, layer 2 bridging, and integration, service chaining. This is the ability to take advantage of third-party vendors such as Trend Micro, Symantec for endpoint inspections, as well as layer 3 vendors such as Palo and Fortinet for network introspection. So they both have the capability of being extensible and being able to add new features by providing these third-party integrations. Now that we've covered the similarities between T and V, I'd like to quickly go over the differences, and there you'll see the advantages of T. So with V, it is vSphere specific, and with T, it's more of a DevOps model. So one issue we always had with T is this tight coupling to vCenter. So if we had one vCenter and we wanted to introduce NSX, we would have to deploy an NSX and then tie those two together. This is that one-to-one coupling. It's kind of like a marriage. If we had another vCenter, we had to introduce a second NSX manager and then tie those together. This worked for a while, and it still does, except there's some limitation here because the inventories of these vCenters are local to that specific vCenter, and they are not shared between the vCenters. So NSX-1, even though it can sync the configuration to the NSX-2, and this could be up to 15 of them, one primary and 14 secondaries. So even though NSX can share its configuration, the objects in the vCenters were local, meaning NSX-2, even though its config is synced between all of these 15, could not see the objects from vCenter 1, and NSX-1 could not see the objects from vCenter 2. So this is definitely an issue and caused some complications in deploying this. With T, that was solved. So with T, we would deploy an NSX-1, and now we're able to connect up to up to 16 vCenters as compute managers. This solved that issue that we had with V. This NSX-T manager now can see the full environment, can see every VM from the environment from these 16 vCenters, which makes it a lot easier to secure. A second difference, which I think it's easier for the V side, but we need to talk about it, is V integrated with your existing VDS that you already have in your environment. So this is easy. With T, we have to introduce a new distributed switch called the NSX virtual distributed switch. So now I have to introduce this. I have to move my uplinks to this new NVDS. I have to move all of my workloads from the VDS, the existing VDS, to the NVDS to be able to secure them and route them and so on. So there's a level of effort here that you have to go through to get to T, but we think in the long run it's worth the effort. A third difference is in V we have one tier of distributed routing. In T we have two tiers of distributed routing. So if we just draw this out quickly, here we have a router with some networks and another router with some networks. And these are distributed routers, distributed router. Now, if I wanted these to communicate together, I had to introduce a new appliance router called an ESG, an Edge Services Gateway, which runs actually on an appliance as a VM. So it's no longer distributed. And then I have to tie these together like this. With T, we kind of changed that model. So now I can do, again, the same distributed router, and this is implemented by a T1 router. And now I can introduce something called a T0 router and then tie these together. And all of this is distributed. So now all of my traffic, whether it's the first tier or the second tier, is all handled through the distributed model. So we think this is a great benefit as well. From this point forward, everything that I'm going to speak about are things that T supports that V does not. So on the hypervisors, we can do ESXi as well as KVM, where V only does ESXi because it is vSphere specific. I can do bare metal and VM edge nodes. Right, this is where all my services would run. The edge nodes are where the services that we talked about, routing and VPN and so on, would run. I can do bare metal server support. Right, V does not have that. I can have container support. So I can secure and route containers within NSX-T, and V cannot do that. Kubernetes support. Again, pods can be secured and routed and so on with NSX-T, where V does not do that. I can bring in native cloud workloads into NSX-T, and this is AWS and Azure. Again, I can secure native things that are running in my AWS and Azure without having really to deploy anything. There's a little agent that would go on these workloads, but again, I'm doing all this from one management platform, one policy set, and so on. And then lastly, a declarative API. So the declarative API really focuses on what do I want the environment to look like, and not so much how do I get there. The traditional API is more called imperative, where I'm giving commands on what I want, where the declarative API is, hey, this is what I want this thing to look like. You figure out how to get it done, but this is what I want the state of this environment to look like. And I don't have to worry about, hey, draw a line here, connect this to that, and so on. So in looking at all this, I think we see T is the way to go. We hope this video helped. Thank you for watching.